Okay, we're back with Dan Lebental, editor of Iron Man, at his beautiful studio in Los Angeles, California. Tell me a little bit about, you cut it on the Avid, and you've been cutting on the Avid for a long time.
Yes, when I was in music videos, I was proud to say I was the first music video editor to own his own Avid in 1992.
Cool.
And I kind of gave me a little bit of a leg up on the competition, too.
Yes, absolutely. I actually got my start because I learned the Avid. I mean, I was ready to cut for a few years. I had done the traditional working my way up as an assistant on features. And the way I got to break through was because I learned the technology.
Yeah, that's a good way for all you young people coming up is that we're all old and stodgy and we probably aren't willing to really get down there and learn the latest stuff. So if you're hip and young and ready to learn, I mean, you can get a leg up. Yeah,
yeah, and there's a lot of cool new toys out there. I mean, you know, it depends on whether you love it or not. I do. I think a lot of the viewers come to this site do. You know, it's kind of like you got to master the crafts, you got to master the tools and techniques, and I always say I think that can set you free to really be creative and really let you do your stuff.
Yeah.
How was your relationship with the visual effects crew? You said there was like almost 1,000 shots, 1,000 digital effect shots.
That's a very interesting thing because I considered it slightly contentious, but they said to me that this was the best they've ever gotten along with an editorial crew ever. So, because there is an inherent conflict between these two parts, I mean, very important parts, because their process takes so long to do and so much is at stake that in essence they like to occupy a large percentage of the assets of a movie. So, you know, me being a traditional editor storyteller, I'm always saying, well, I want to get the story right before I go down roads. Let's get that right. But it's not. The way it works, at least at the present time, is that's not always realistic. You need to get the sequences in what we call the pipeline, get them, you know, making these things. Yeah, rough them out. Have these things advancing as you're figuring out what the actual story of the movie is. So it makes it you know, an inherent conflict on that. But you know, these luckily on Iron Man, these are all wonderful people. I mean, the supervisor.
You worked with ILM, right? And
ILM, yeah. The supervisor is named John Nelson, who's very accomplished, you know, and I mean, a very cerebral, thoughtful man. You know, if there was any conflict, is because he would not move until all things had been examined thoroughly, and I was like, let's get it going, man. Let's get it on.
It's kind of like you can see the cut that's going to happen early on, but you can't make it because, you know, you got to let people go through their process. And,
yeah. And I'll tell you, one of the most nerve-wracking things is when you've gone down a road and then you end up cutting out some marvelous effect shots, and we did. I think maybe one of the most spectacular effect shots in the movie ended up needing to get cut out to make the sequence, to make that area of the film run properly.
Right, yeah, and it's a heartbreaker because...
It's a heartbreaker.
Yeah, because you work hard on them and you know how hard these people work on them.
Yeah, I mean, there were, I think ILM had, you know, more than 500 people working around the clock on this thing, and you know, and there were 3 other vendors, so you could see, you know, like some ridiculous number, like 800 people just, you know, designing these effects.
Did you find yourself getting a lot of pressure to either, you know, sign off on effects, either effects individually or sequences, because of the economics? I mean, a lot of times, you know, people want to, you know, the studio and post-production people want to find out whether or not you're going to have to cut.
Yeah, I would say both. That's a very true thing, both the economics, but also just the time. I mean, it seemed like we had a lot of time, but by the end, it was a race. It was a race against the clock, and it made for a finish on a movie like I had never experienced before, where I was actually mixing the movie, doing, you know, all my sound work to you know, to get everything music together. And at the same time, they were delivering at least 250 effects in the last few weeks, and I was recutting whole scenes while I was doing the final mix of a movie, which is very, in my experience, I hadn't been through that before, but they all just kind of nodded their head and go, welcome, welcome to the way of the world, you know?
Yeah, and most effect sequences need to be tweaked once you get them into the cutting room.
Yeah, because, you know, it's, I know you know this, but I think that it's one thing to plan things and even have rough things, but when you get confronted with the actual shot,
right,
you need to right then and there make the decision about what's really going to be in the movie, and that's where you can make some, you know, I definitely in certain places said, okay, now that I see what we've got, I'm throwing out the game plan. Let's do it this way.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, because that's what we get paid for, and you know, we're with the movie for so long. So, you know, early on, as editors, we get this instinct that this just, you know, this is just not going to fly. And of course, you know, we discuss it with our directors and such, but sometimes people want to hang on to those things,
yeah,
for a long time.
Oh, it can be agonizing. And John, you know, I would say, okay, John, just let me show you this. Let me show you this. And he might get a little sweat on the brow and say, you know, I spent 8, yeah, I know you did, but let's look at what it does to the movie. And
Right.
so.
Right, that's great.